Hello, so-called YouTube community. This is not a non-dude 2. My name is Brother Selfrighteous, and I'm here exposing apostate inconsistencies and freeing you from freedom. Who needs it anyway? As you may be able to tell, I'm an elder. Do you not see this mustache of scriptural authority? Do you not see it? I would never have a beard, like some apostates may decide to grow once they apostasize. Yes, that's right, beards and other assorted facial hair that's not mustaches is a clear sign of defection from the faith. Right here we see an individual who is brazenly wearing a beard. That's why he's being tortured on a torture stake. I am not wearing a beard. I am following scriptural Christian principles. That being said, brothers and sisters, it's that time again. Yes, that's right. It's time to weed out the leavenous and sinful elements from our congregation to keep it clean. Before I announce the names for this evening's disfellowshipping, I think it is wise for us to present the evidence for their being disfellowshipped. I know this is a stray from the usual, the usual format, but I think it's necessary. Brothers and sisters, there seems to be a lot of anger inside the congregation. We're all familiar with the Council of James 1:19 and 20, where it tells us to be slow about speaking and slow about wrath. Well, I'm here to tell you, there are wrathful elements amongst us. Yes, that's right. You probably know them as James and John, apostles of Jesus.
Well, Brother Selfrighteous, you can't possibly try and disfellowship.
That's right. I'm going to disfellowship them. It's well within my scriptural authority, and after all, if leavenous elements like Ray Franz can infiltrate the governing body, then clearly no place is safe, not even the flock of Jesus. That being said, Mark tells us exactly the nature of these unsuitable fish, James and John. Mark 3:17 identifies them as the sons of thunder. That's right. Undoubtedly, it's because of their fiery temper. There we go. Bing, bang, bongo. We can see that these men are wrathful, but they even give in repeatedly to rage and wrath. Luke chapter 9, verses 51 to 54 shows us that they had murderous intentions. In verse 54 it says, when the disciples James and John, that's right, the sons of thunder, better believe it, saw this, they said, Lord, do you want us to tell fire to come down from heaven and annihilate them? Not before the Armageddon, buddy. Not before Armageddon. That's when God's going to burn everyone. Getting a little bit presumptuous there, aren't you, sons of thunder? So they had murderous intent. These men were setting up a pattern of repeated sins. Why would we want to imitate such men or keep them inside the wonderful spiritual paradise of our congregation? I don't know. The sin doesn't stop there, brothers and sisters. It gets worse. So much worse. These debauched and brazen men went even so far as to send their mother to ask Jesus for special privileges. Matthew 20 through 22 gives us all the gory details. It says, then the mother of the sons of Zebedee approached them with her sons, doing obeisance and asking something from him. Sly. He said to her, what do you want? She said to him, give the word that these my 2 sons may sit down, one at your right hand and one at your left in your kingdom. This is clear sign, clear evidence that these men were seeking positions of prominence in the congregations. As clear an indication of apostasy as I ever saw one, presumption galore. And we even have indications that these men's influence spread to the rest of the apostles, because they would regularly squabble and bicker amongst themselves as to who was the greatest. Apostasizing, falling away from the faith is what it was. Darn shame, darn shame. It is for this reason that we must announce James and John are no longer members of Jehovah's Witnesses. We can be proud that we serve in an organization where sin is punished in a swift and judicious manner. However, brothers and sisters, the apostasy doesn't seem to end there, for we have more indications of brazen conduct. It's better if I just share the account. John 20:24 and 25 says this, "But Thomas, one of the 12, who was called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. Consequently, the other disciples would say to him, 'We have seen the Lord.' But he said to them, 'Unless I see his hands, the print of the nails, and stick my finger into the print of the nails, and stick my hand into his side, I will certainly not believe.'" This shows clear contempt for scriptural leaders in the congregation. After all, the apostles were essentially the first members of the governing body. And here we brazenly see the apostate tendencies of Thomas, who doubts their word and even goes so far as demanding proof from Jesus himself. How haughty an attitude we see manifesting itself in Thomas. The book of Thomas is also a very compelling testament as well to his apostate views. Scholars can't be sure who actually wrote the book, but that doesn't matter anything. As Christians, we have clear scriptural evidence and our Bible-based belief that tells us anyone who would be associated with the book of the Apocrypha surely could not be in good standing with Jehovah God. It is for this reason that Thomas, the apostle of Jesus, is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Further, we see the same wrathful, haughty, brazen tendencies expressed in Simon, also called Peter, a man who was given to loose conduct for sure. We find repeated instances throughout the scripture of Peter losing his temper, questioning authority, and other sinful activities, as if questioning authority wasn't bad enough. We see in John 17:10 a good example. Then Simon Peter, as he had a sword, drew it and struck the slave of the high priest and cut his right ear off. The name of the slave was Malchus. Now, brothers and sisters, I gotta tell you, the Pharisees were devoted to following the law. They even washed their hands up to the elbows and strained out the gnat in their ongoing attempts to follow the law. These were truly spiritual men. They would also enforce the law, doing their best to shepherd the flock of Israel. And here Peter violently lashes out against the high priest's slave. And really, the high priest is probably something like a PO, which I might add, I am such a presiding overseer, at any rate. And the slave could probably be likened to a ministerial servant. So he goes so far as to assault a ministerial servant. Peter. His actions don't end there. In Mark 14:66-71, we have an entire account where Peter lied and denied Jesus. He even cursed. Apostate, 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 apostate. Peter, Simon, also called Peter, is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses. And lastly, probably the most grievous of all sinners, we have Jesus Christ. How true the counsel at 1 Corinthians 15:33 is, where it tells us bad associations spoil useful habits. After spending so much time around the leavenous influences of the budding apostasy with his own flock, Jesus fell away from the healthful teachings and the traditions that you men were instructed in. I'll give you several examples, since time is unfortunately running short in this video. John 5 verse 18 shows us that Jesus was breaking the Sabbath. Mark 11:15-18 shows us how Jesus disrupted Christian meetings and gave into rage. Clearly, he wasn't valuing gathering together. Mark 2:13-17 shows Jesus breaking bread with disreputable sinners and tax collectors, showing flagrant disregard for scriptural principles on such matters. Matthew 23:23-24 is only one small demonstration of the contempt Jesus had for leadership and authority. After all, we know his opinion of the wonderful scribes and Pharisees who were only trying to live up to the law, and Jesus repeatedly denigrated such men. It is for this reason that I can now say with clean conscience and righteous indignation at the apostasy of Jesus that Jesus of Nazareth is no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses, and good riddance. We don't need his kind in our spiritual paradise, the congregation, now do we? Brothers and sisters, I think you know very well that apostasy is wrong. Do not apostatize. Listen to my mustache. It is telling you with authority that these are facts. Oh, my mustache. Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, yes. Getting back to the video. Brothers and sisters, it's a sad day when so many fall away from the faith. However, we can be of good cheer because we also have good news. It has come to our attention, the elder body, of course, is what I'm referring to, that some have been wrongfully accused. And upon evaluation of the Scripture, we find that Judas Iscariot, one who has been repeatedly pointed to as being evil, is one such wrongfully accused individual. We now recognize the value of his actions. Judas, after all, was the only apostle who did what was right by reporting Jesus' wayward activities to the elders, that is to say, the Pharisees, such as myself. He did not betray him, as some would claim. He was simply seeking to help his brother by giving him to spiritual shepherds for them to readjust Jesus' thinking. We also see Judas' concern for his fellow man in John chapter 12 and verse 4, and also John chapter 14:10, where it shows us that he wanted to conveniently hand over Jesus to his spiritual shepherds. So obviously he didn't want to see Jesus harmed. That was all just an accident. Judas was doing what he was supposed to do scripturally. And so, for these reasons, we are happy to announce that Judas Iscariot has been reinstated as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Yay! 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 Now, folks, I think the veneer is wearing thin. After all, you've probably realized that this is, in fact, an Undude 2. And by doing this ridiculous parody, I have exposed Watchtower inconsistencies by showing the things that they regularly point to as being indications of apostasy. Well, these same activities Jesus' own apostles were engaging in, and so is he. So the standards are not being held equally throughout the congregation. Some, such as the people that I've mentioned in this video, have been given a pass by brothers like Brother Selfrighteous with his mustache of authority. And so I leave this video off with the same words: life is a state of mind.